Saxon Algebra 1, December midterm review. You guys, I literally had to restart this video because when I tried to say Saxon Algebra 1, I don't even know what I said. It came out like Saxon Algebra 1. And I was like, outtakes, we're not even going to try to recover from that. Here we go. We're going to review for our midterm. As I promised you, this video is going to cover 3 main points. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to review recent lessons, and I'm going to remind you of what you should study. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to go over the lesson number, the topic, and I'll remind you about some of the formulas you might need, okay? The lesson numbers, I promise you that the test will be built on only the lessons that I show you. I will not pick something else just to try to confuse you. What I do not promise is that I will list every single formula you need. I'll do my best to remind you of what formulas you need, but don't limit your memorization work, which we will talk about later, to what I list here. There may be other things that you need to know, and I may not list every single one, okay? I will list every single lesson. I won't necessarily list every single formula. There, I hope that's clear. Don't sue me, okay? If you need to know a formula that I didn't list. All right, 48. Our most recent lesson, I'm going to start with the most recent and work backwards. The important thing we learned here is we learned about adding polynomials. All right, that's fair game. No real formula that we needed there. Remember, you just add them in order, it's descending order. 47 is a gem. That was freaking formula. Percents greater than 100 and percents less than 100, right? This P over 100 times of equals is, and then you also need to know this business, right? The ice cream sundae and the peanut / toddler baby Jesus information, all right? So those are kind of formulas, but they're, what would I say? Organizing sketches, let's say that. All right, and you need to know how to use those. These would be mandatory for, if I give you a problem like this, it's absolutely essential. And I would say, what does John say? I'll say it just like John. Work the problem and then draw a diagram. That's what I would say. Just like John does, because you know, me and John. 46, conjunctions. That's the number line business. Yes. No formula to those. You just have to know how to draw the number line and graph in the solution. 45. Range, median, mode, and mean. Yes. Those guys don't have formulas. You just have to understand the concept. So make sure that you can work those. 44. Oh, 44 is a big dog, isn't it? 44 is what John calls adding rational expressions. I'm going to call it adding fractions with letters. And I'll show you just to remind you. They're big kooky problems, right? Things like this, where we have unequal denominators and we have to build a least common multiple that's a mashup of letters and numbers. Right? And then we had some here that look crazier, but these weren't so bad because the denominators already match. Here, here, and here, right? These were relatively easy. It gets harder when we have to build, I'm covering up the answer so you can just focus on the problem. When we have to build the matching denominators, that's a little more work. And look, it got harder, didn't it? Over here. Look, remember? Oh, you have to add the missing pieces. These are hard problems, you guys. And therefore, I will probably put one on the test. Okay. So that's what I mean by these, adding fractions with letters. There's no formula for that. You just have to find the LCM. 43. 43 is what you need to know in order to do this one, right? 43 is about how do you build a least common multiple, especially least common multiples with letters, right? When it's not just numbers in your denominator, but letters, because look, we used it in that. Isn't that tricky how John layers it all in? 42, solving multivariable equations. These were tricky too. You guys, we have really stepped up in the past few weeks, haven't we? Multivariable equations are things where there's lots of different letters, and we wouldn't know what to do unless John told us which letter he wants us to solve for. If we didn't have his guidance here, he's sending us on a quest, right? If we didn't know what we were searching for, we couldn't do anything with that problem. But it's where John tells us, solve for this letter, and then we just rearrange everything to make that happen. 41. '41 has two types of, it has two topics. One is, it's such a long title, I don't want to write it all out, but I'll show you. It's adding like terms like so, where at first it looks like things aren't going to match, right? And it looks like we just have a mess. But then we clean up the negative exponents and simplify top and bottom. We use our power product and quotient rules to fix them, and then we get like terms, all right? So that is fair game. And then the other topic in here are what we call two-step problems. And these, most people find much more agreeable. They look like this. If x plus 3 equals 7, what is the value of x minus 8? So first we solve this. We get a value for x equals 4. Oh, okay. Then you take that value and plug it into the second part. 2 steps. Those are good. I like those. I'm sure you do too, because what's not to love? 40. 40 is using our quotient rule for exponents. And it's also got, it's kind of wrapped in together. It's also got some distributive property. You know those monstrous distributions that we have to do with all the kooky letters? Distributive property. And this is one of my favorite things. We need to memorize the rules for, see what I did there? Exponents. That's a whole chart that looks like this. I'm going to do it after we're done doing this list. I'll rewrite that chart for you. You have to know that, you guys. In fact, I may even make that part of the test, is that you have to recreate that rules for exponent chart. But don't let me I don't want to get distracted from this. I'll come back to that. 39. 39 has 2 parts. Negated inequalities. That's when we say something like that, right? If it's not greater than, then what is it? Oh, less than or equal to. And then the other one is advanced ratios. Advanced ratio problems. And that's the diagram where we set it up like this. And actually there's a third row now, right? This is the ratio, this is the actual, these are the items we're comparing, and then we have a total row. Okay, so you need to know how to make that chart. 38. So I'm flipping through my notes here. Okay, 38 is ratio problems. So that's similar to this. 37, I'm running out of room, aren't I? I'm going to go to 35. 37 is more inequalities. Right? We had negated inequalities here. This is just regular inequalities where we're graphing on the number line. Flipping. Just look and see. Ah, okay. I was looking for a piece of paper and I found it. It's inside my book. Okay, let's see. So 37 was inequalities. 36 is more distributive property. You know, the big hairy ones with all the crazy stuff going on. I'll show you what I mean. These monsters, right? Where you have a fraction on the outside, on the inside, and you have to distribute and multiply across. And they get quite kooky, don't they? Quite kooky. All right. 36. I recognize this as a very hard problem. And the last one I'm going to show you is 35. And that's factoring the greatest common factor. Okay? And then there's sort of a side note with that of canceling. Okay? That doesn't really have a formula to go with it either. All right? Okay, so those are all of the, I'll show it here one more time. If you need time to copy it, pause right now. Okay, I'm assuming you're back. These lessons and these lessons will be on the test. Here are some of the formulas that you will need to make that happen. And I'm going to draw out this chart for you now to help you remember exactly what I'm looking for there. This should be in your notes. It should be in the cover of your book. It's super important. Please, please, please make sure you memorize it now. I mean now meaning before this test. It goes like this. Across here we write rules for exponents. Then we draw 3 rows and we make the middle one fatter than the top and the bottom. Then we fill in the name. Product. Product implies multiplying. Quotient. Quotient implies dividing. And power, oh, well, that's exponents, right? So here's the way the rule looks. If you're multiplying 2 bases that match and they each have an exponent, then you can just add the exponents together. Okay. Quotient implies dividing. And this row's a little bit bigger, so it reminds us, oh yeah, this is where you have to write the fraction. That's why we make this a little wider. If you have matching bases, notice it has to be matching bases. If the bases match and you're dividing, you can simplify that by subtracting top minus bottom. Okay, good. We use these a lot, don't we? And we're going to keep using them for years to come. Now, what if you have a base with an exponent on it, and then you want to raise it to a higher power? Now, you multiply. Okay? So notice the pattern. When we multiply the bases, we add the exponents. When we divide the bases, we subtract the exponents. When we raise the base to a higher power, then we multiply the exponents. A lot of students get confused and they want to multiply here, but that's not right. Memorize this exactly the way I have written it here. Please, I'm begging you. You're going to need it for years to come. Trust me, it's worth the effort. Just memorize it, all right? Okay, that leads me into a conversation about what I want you to do to prepare for this test. Hopefully you are listening, yes, watching/listening to this video on Monday, and you still have a little bit of time to get something done today. I want you to do 2 sessions of homework before the test. One on Monday, one on Tuesday. In each session, which, I want you to spend maybe 45 minutes, an hour at the absolute max. What I'd like you to do is for each of those topics that I listed out on this other page, right there, that's the last 2. Here, let me flip it. For each of these topics, I want you to go through and do 2 or 3 problems on each one of those topics. Now, where are you going to find these problems? Well, you could do the examples. Go to the actual lesson where each one was taught, which is the number I gave you, right? These numbers are the lessons that match. And you can do the examples that are shown right there. Those are the examples I do in the video. And it's nice because they have a good explanation of how to do them right there. If you don't want to do those, you can do the practice problems from the lesson where that topic was introduced. Or if you're feeling really wild, you can find your own problems in any one of the problem sets. And again, the trick to that is that in the problem sets, here's an example, this little number in parentheses, that tells the lesson where this topic was originally taught. So if you wanted to find a problem for lesson, let's just say you were looking for lesson 34. That's not on our list, so don't. But let's just pretend. Then this would be a fine problem for you to do in order to practice lesson 34. So there are 3 different sources that you can use to find 2 or 3 problems per topic. And I want you to do those and make sure that it's flowing pretty smoothly for you. If you run into problems, if those are confusing you, if you're getting them wrong, if you feel confused, you can do more of those problems if you're struggling. But what I'd really rather do is call me. Reach out to me. Video, audio, call me, send me an email, use your mom's phone to shoot me a text, whatever works for you. But that would be, if you do 2 to 3 problems and you're struggling, reach out to me, please. Let me help you, all right? The other thing I want you to work on, maybe outside of these 2 sessions of homework, is memorizing your formulas. Everyone needs to find how their brain likes to memorize things. Students have to discover this for themselves. It's not something that your teacher can tell you how to do. It's not something that your parents can tell you how to do because your brain is a unique organism. So what I want you to do is consider some different ways to memorize and experiment with what you think works best for you. One thing you can do, you can practice saying them out loud. Go look at yourself in the bathroom mirror and practice saying the formulas over and over again. Write yourself some flashcards and test yourself. Say them out loud if that helps to you. Whisper them, scream them. Go up in your garage and, chant like a gorilla, whatever it takes. One thing to remember is that movement helps our brains memorize. When we move, our brains release certain chemicals that help move information into short and then eventually long-term memory. Movement makes a difference. So if you're a person who likes to create like little dances or jumps or steps, I know boys that used to go out and do all their memorizing by jumping, not super high, but like small rhythmic bouncing on the trampoline. Helped just get them in the right mindset. I know a lot of boys that got through high school because they would jump on the trampoline to memorize things. Use a whiteboard. Writing is a form of movement. So writing things over and over again, especially if it's kind of fun, like writing on a whiteboard, that is super useful. If you get bored doing it by yourself, grab a parent. Moms are usually happy to help. This is a really good thing for dads to help with too, because dads often can't keep up with what's going on with their kids' homeschooling lives. But memorization, they can jump in and say, oh, okay, you're memorizing this formula? Cool. So if you've got a dad handy, or what about this, you guys? Ask each other. I'm pretty sure you guys know each other, so that would be an option. Or if you know students in my other classes, or really any class, right? If you've got a friend, ask them to help you memorize. Sometimes that helps it not be boring. The third thing I want you to think about, which you don't really have to do separately, you can do it as part of this, is I want you to think about showing your work. Pay attention to how you do it and make sure that you're showing your work the same way that I show my work in the lessons when I'm teaching you. I know I've said this before. I'm sure I'll say it again. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I've thought a lot about how to lay out the problems to make it easier for my students to understand and also to remember. So I'm pretty committed to those step-by-step processes. I know sometimes they're long, and sometimes I give you shortcuts, right? If once you start getting the hang of it, you can go a little faster. You can use the shortcuts, that's fine. You don't have to use the long cuts, as I like to say. But show your work neat, orderly, and the same way that I do in order to earn full credit on your test. Okay, so this is what I want you to do for your 2 sessions of homework to prepare for the test. Now, let's talk about the third topic, which is, how is this test actually going to work? Here's what's going to happen. I am going to drop off the test to you on Wednesday, December 16th between noon and 1. The test will be in an envelope, just like last year, and it'll be a big manila envelope, and I will leave it on your porch or by your front door, whatever's convenient. I will text probably your mom just to let her know when I've dropped it off at your house. I have a lot of houses to go to. I'm going to be like Santa delivering gifts on Christmas Eve. So sometime in this time frame is when I hope to get to. I hope I can get to everybody by then. I will be back to pick that same test up from you on Thursday between 2 and 3. Again, that's my target. You will take the test sometime between these 2 begin and end times. When you're done, you'll put it back in the envelope and put it back on your porch or doorstep, wherever you found it. And then either you or your mom can message me and say, okay, done. If you get done super early, like let's say you're ready and raring to go, and as soon as I drop it off, you tear into it and immediately finish it, let me know. And I'll try to come back earlier so that I can get it and grade it and let you know as soon as possible how you did. All right? So that is an option, is to take it as soon as possible, and depending on what's happening in my life, I'll try to come and get it so that you can find out your score as soon as possible. All right, and then that's what I'll do. As soon as I do pick your test up, I'll bring it home, and then I'm going to sit down and grade the tests right away, and then I'll message you with your score. You can reach out to me, but I won't forget, okay? If I haven't gotten back to you, it just means I haven't had time yet, but I won't forget. I know it's stressful to be waiting for your test. All right, and the last thing I want to say to you is that every once in a while, a student will score below 80%. Anywhere between 80 and 100%, I consider to be equally fabulous, and I'm thrilled with any student who can score that high on one of my tests. If you score below 80%, that gives me reason for concern. And what I very often do will reach out to a student and say, I'll talk a little bit about where did you have trouble? What can we do to give you a second chance to show me what you know? Because I believe that my students should be able to score above 80% because I know you've been working hard. So if you don't, then we're going to talk and we're going to figure out a way to redeem you, okay? Before we break for Christmas. It's going to happen right away. So I don't have any sort of like standard approach for doing that. I just look and see what a student struggled with, and I'll be in touch and we'll figure something out. Now, some students ask, well, what if I get like 79.5? I won't let that happen. If you're really, really close to 80%, I'll either go back and find a couple more points I can give you to bump it up, or I may say, no, this is worse than I thought, and I may bring it down. But your grade will not be, I won't give any scores between 75 and 80%. It will be clear that a student either went one way or the other. So don't worry about that. In any case, one way or another, we will get each student to the place where they are done, their midterm is complete, and then you are done for the fall. Well, it's not really the semester, but anyway, you're done for Christmas. And what I want you to do at that point is close your book. Like I said, I mean this literally.